All right, brothers and sisters, welcome back to the last dispensation. I'm your host, Troy. Getting better, feeling a little bit better, but like Spencer W. Kimball once said, I've been amongst cutthroats. That's what it feels like. It feels like somebody just cut my throat in the middle of the night. Anyway, I have a sore throat. I'm going to be okay, though, and you guys can understand me. Orrin Porter Rockwell, born June 28th, 1813, or June 25th, 1815, and died June 9th, 1878. He was a figure of the Wild West and a lawman, a figure of the Wild West period of the American history, and a lawman in the Utah Territory. He was nicknamed Old Port and the Destroying Angel of Mormondom. Rockwell served as a bodyguard and was personal friend of the prophet Joseph Smith. After Smith's death in 1844, Rockwell became a bodyguard of his successor, Brigham Young, and traveled with him and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints to the Salt Lake Valley in the present-day U.S. state of Utah. Now, I don't know much about Porter Rockwell, and I watched this video called Legends of the West. Well, actually, it's from a channel called Legends of the West. Porter Rockwell, Samson of the West. And we're going to watch this and react to it. I don't know much about, like I said, I don't know much about Porter Rockwell, but you guys let me know in the comments section if I get something right, if something was wrong about this. I don't know if this person is a member of the church. I found it interesting, though. Here we go.
Orrin Porter Rockwell was one of the most unique figures of the Wild West period of American history. He was a gunfighter, scout, guide, U.S. Deputy Marshal, and personal bodyguard of Mormon founder Joseph Smith and Mormon leader Brigham Young. In the West, he purportedly killed more men than Wyatt Earp, Doc Holliday, Bat Masterson, and Tom Horn combined. Known as the Destroying Angel, in 1869, Rockwell once told a crowd, "I never killed anyone who didn't need killing," a quote used by actor John Wayne in a movie decades later. Porter was born in Hampshire County, Massachusetts around 1814 to Orrin and Sarah Rockwell. His family were neighbors and friends of the family of Mormon founder Joseph Smith. Most of Porter's life would be heavily influenced by Mormonism.
Interesting. I didn't know they were neighbors. They were actually childhood friends. That's right. They were childhood friends.
Due to his close ties with the Smith family, especially Joseph. Although Joseph was 8 years older than Porter, the two would become very close friends. While Smith was publishing the Book of Mormon, Rockwell picked berries and hauled wood into the town to help pay for the publishing. Rockwell's family followed the Smith family to Fayetteville, New York in 1829, and in 1830 Rockwell was among the first and youngest members baptized into the newly organized church. When the Fayetteville branch moved to Kirkland, Ohio in 1831, Rockwell went with them but was only there for a short time before he was sent to help settle Jackson County, Missouri. While in Missouri, Rockwell became a crack marksman, brave leader and defender of the growing band of Mormons in Jackson County. The rising number of Mormons in the area and the anti-slavery sentiment of leader Joseph Smith had caused the Missourians to feel great hostility towards them, leading to harassment and mob violence. In 1838, the hostile engagements between the Mormons and Missourians continued to grow, eventually escalating into armed conflict at the Battle of Crooked Creek. Conflict over property rights and heated tensions boiled over on Election Day as Mormons arrived to cast their vote, but were stopped from participating. A fight broke out, and before long, inflated versions of the event spread across neighboring counties, infuriating the Missourians. Missouri Governor Lilburn Boggs, wishing to drive the Mormons out of the state, ordered a militia made up of 11 counties to destroy the Mormon stronghold at Far West, Missouri. Word of this upcoming attack reached the Mormons, and an armed company of about 60 Mormons, directed by David W. Patton and likely led by Rockwell, marched out from far west to meet the advancing Missouri militia being led by Captain Sam Bogart.
Can you imagine having being Porter Rockwell and having that burden upon you, or that stigma that you're like a Captain Samson type figure, a warrior, an angel, the destroying angel? You're giving names and terms like that, and everything is the Latter-day Saints look to you for militant guidance and protection. It's mind-boggling. I couldn't fathom being in his shoes.
Out from far west to meet the advancing Missouri militia being led by Captain Sam Bogart. On the night of October 24, 1838, Captain Bogart's unit had camped along the banks of Crooked River in Buncombe Strip. Patton and the Mormon company approached from the north along the main road, having traveled the 12 or so miles from far west. At daybreak on the 25th, the Mormons encountered the militia's sentries. A brief firefight ensued, with each side testifying that the other had fired first. One of the sentries, John Lockhart, shot Patrick O'Banion, the Mormon scout who later died from his wounds. After the brief engagement, Lockhart and the other guards fled down the hill to the militia camp and took a defensive position. The Mormon company approached the camp of militia and formed a battle line in 3 columns. A Mormon reported that soon after they had formed their lines, the militia fired upon us with all their guns, and a general firefight commenced. The militia were situated behind the riverbank and held the tactically superior position, limiting the success of the Mormon attack. Mormon soldier Ebenezer Robinson recalled that Patton had been brave to a fault, so much so that he was styled and called Captain Fear-Not. Patton decided to charge the militia position, shouting the Mormon battle cry of God and liberty. During his charge, Patton was shot and mortally wounded. The Missourians were without swords and were quickly overtaken by the Mormon advance. Fearing for their lives, they broke their lines and fled across the river in all directions. Porter escaped the fight unharmed and helped lead the victorious yet dispirited party back to far west. The aftermath of the battle left 4 killed and 9 wounded. Shortly after the Battle of Crooked Creek, Governor Boggs issued Missouri Executive Order 44, also known as the Mormon Extermination Order, which evicted Mormons from the state of Missouri by any means necessary. The executive order led to more...
Now, Missouri has since formally apologized to the church for that. And what did Joseph Smith, I forgot what he told him. Maybe you guys can comment in the comment section. What did Joseph Smith prophesy to Governor Boggs? That he would run again, but he would never win an election after that. I can't quite remember. It was something to that, something similar to that.
Known as the Mormon Extermination Order, which evicted Mormons from the state of Missouri by any means necessary. The executive order led to more violence against the Mormons, and they were eventually driven from Jackson County to Nauvoo, Illinois. Rockwell remained behind to see that the remaining members of the church were protected. On May 6, 1842, there was an assassination attempt on Governor Boggs. An unknown assailant fired buckshot into Boggs' home, striking the former Missouri governor. He was severely wounded but survived. Governor Boggs was not a particularly popular governor, and a few men were immediately held in question, but Rockwell was quickly identified as the prime suspect given his fierce loyalty to the Mormons, and Governor Boggs demonstrated prejudice against them. Porter denied attempting to assassinate Governor Boggs, stating, "I never did an act in my life that I have been ashamed of, and I do not fear to go anywhere that I have never been, for I have done nothing criminal." One source reports that when Joseph Smith was questioned about Rockwell's alleged involvement in the assassination attempt of Governor Boggs, he stated, "The fact that Boggs was not assassinated is proof to him that Rockwell was not guilty. Porter would not have missed." Despite no evidence ever being produced to connect Rockwell with the crime, a warrant was put out for he and Joseph Smith's arrest, and both men went into hiding. Porter fled to Ohio and then on to Pennsylvania, eventually finding his way to Philadelphia, where he unsuccessfully looked for work. Eventually, Rockwell decided to return west. On March 4, 1843, he stepped off the riverboat at St. Louis, ready to return home to Nauvoo when he was stopped and arrested by a bounty hunter who had him at rifle point. Rockwell would spend the next 8 months imprisoned in jails across Missouri, attempting to escape at least once. Eventually, he stood before a grand jury for the attempted assassination of Governor Boggs, which found him not guilty. Ironically, he would remain imprisoned for his attempt to escape jail for a crime he did not commit. On December 13th, Rockwell was finally freed and started an arduous journey to Nauvoo on foot. Rockwell trekked over 100 miles on foot and horseback with little food and nowhere to stay. On Christmas Eve, Rockwell finally made it to the home of Joseph Smith, who was hosting a large Christmas party. Due to the terrible living conditions Rockwell had endured during his imprisonment, he had lost weight, his hair had grown long past his shoulders, and he appeared so disheveled that nobody at the party recognized him. Nobody except his friend, Joseph. As he was being escorted out of the home, Joseph realized that the unkempt man was his lost friend, Porter Rockwell, and he immediately embraced him as his brother. Another lifelong trademark of Porter Rockwell's legend was established that night when Joseph Smith told Porter not to cut his hair but to wear it long and to live faithful, and that as long as he did so, his enemies would have no power over him, and they would not be able to take his life. Rockwell followed Joseph's counsel and grew his hair long without ever cutting it, earning him the nickname as Samson of the West. Following their reunion, Rockwell operated a business in Nauvoo, again accompanying and protecting his friend. Severe persecution continued to follow the Mormons, eventually culminating in the assassination of Joseph Smith by an armed mob in 1844.
It allows the imagination to wonder if Joseph Smith really meant it as this is power, you not cutting your hair is godly power. You're not going to go wrong if you follow what I say. Or if it was a way of giving Brother Rockwell more confidence. The cutting of the hair, would he have lacked in confidence? In other words, would he, if he continued to grow it and not cut it, following a living prophet's command to not do it, or spiritual recommendation, it gave him confidence, almost in a sense a power within itself.
Continued to follow the Mormons, eventually culminating in the assassination of Joseph Smith by an armed mob in 1844 at the Carthage prison in Illinois. On the day Joseph Smith was assassinated, Rockwell and friend Gilbert Belknap were on horseback making their way to visit him in prison when writer and fellow Mormon George D. Grant galloped past them at full speed. Grant was being chased from Carthage by members of the mob, and as he stormed past Rockwell and Belknap, he shouted out the news that Joseph had been killed. The mob pursuing Grant opened fire on Rockwell and Belknap, who dismounted their horses, took cover, and began returning fire. One by one, Rockwell picked off the horsemen with lethal accuracy. The remaining mobsters, seeing their companions struck down with such precision, immediately pivoted and retreated back towards Carthage. Rockwell was devastated by the loss of his childhood friend, and he bore the weight of his death for the rest of his life. Persecution continued to rage against the Mormons, and Rockwell continued to do his best to protect them as much as possible. In September 1845, Rockwell shot and killed Frank Worrell, who was the leading hand in the death of Joseph Smith. Frank Worrell was leading a small mob of 5 men to chase down and kill Sheriff Jacob B. Backenstoes. Backenstoes, fleeing the mob, came across Rockwell and friend John Redding and pleaded with them to protect him. Jacob Baum, a farmer living near the road, reports that while the mob charged against Rockwell and Backenstoes, that Porter rushed up to their gate, threw his bridle rein over the post, and hurriedly rushed into the road, paused for just a brief second, then fired his rifle. Moments after firing, he said with great satisfaction, "I got him. I was afraid my rifle couldn't reach him, but it did." Still at a distance from Rockwell and Backenstoes, Worrell was struck by Rockwell's shot and fell straightway from his horse. The other riders, shocked by the out-of-nowhere strike to their leader, quickly collected their fallen companion and retreated back. Later, Rockwell would be arrested for the killing of Worrell, but it was decided that he had acted in self-defense and was freed. In April 1846, Rockwell went to Council Bluffs, Iowa, where leaders had headquartered operations to coordinate efforts for the Mormons' exodus west. On December 29, 1846, a council meeting determined to send an advance party to the Rocky Mountains, and it was here that Rockwell was chosen as scout and chief hunter. In April 1847, Rockwell and his advance party headed out. In the new land, Rockwell and his fellow Easterners faced challenges they had never imagined, and beasts they had only heard of, including the mighty buffalo. As chief scout and hunter, he led charges into herds of buffalo, using his skill with a rifle to bring down the great beasts to provide meat and pelts for his traveling company. Rockwell was a masterful hunter, as multiple diaries confirm his many successful hunts for buffalo, deer, and antelope. A few months later, on July 22nd, Rockwell became just the third Mormon to enter the Salt Lake Valley, but his stay would not be long. Over the next few months, he would lead companies to California to deliver mail and bring back supplies for the Mormons who were trying to settle their new home in Utah. Rockwell also spent some time in California panning for gold, where he earned enough money to open a saloon in California at Murderer's Bar, a traveler's inn at Buckeye Flat that was known as the Round Tent Saloon. In 1849, Rockwell was appointed as deputy marshal of Great Salt Lake City, chasing down horse thieves, rustlers, and violators of the law. His relentlessness quickly made him the best lawman in the territory. His accuracy was so deadly, he once shot a bank robber attempting to escape on horseback in the pitch black of night. Rockwell's fame as a mountain man attracted the explorer Richard Francis Burton. In 1860, on his trip across America to the West Coast, Burton stopped to explore the Salt Lake City area. He stayed with Lysander Dayton in a village near the city, and Dayton invited Rockwell to dinner. Rockwell sent for a bottle of Valley Tan whiskey, and he and Burton drank shot for shot into the night, with Rockwell outlining steps Burton should take for safety during his passage to Sacramento. In 1878, he attended the Salt Lake Theater with his daughter Mary. The next morning, he complained of being cold, and soon afterwards began to feel very sick. He stayed in bed the whole day until around 5 o'clock that night. As he tried to rise from his bed, he again felt as though he might be sick, and falling back into his bed, he closed his eyes and died almost instantly.
I didn't know Porter Rockwell drank that much or owned a bar. I'd never heard of that before. Can anyone recommend any books, really good books about Porter Rockwell? I would like to order one and read it and maybe do some more stuff about him.
After his death, the Deseret News described Rockwell as honorable in all dealings, true to his friends and his word, firm in faith, feared only by cattle thieves and mobocrats and their supporters. Porter Rockwell has been described as one of the gutsiest gunmen in American history, and his story of heroic battles, ability as a marksman, frontiersman, mountain man, and loyal friend seals his place as a legend of the West. Thank you for watching. Please comment your thoughts below, like and share this video, and subscribe for more inspiring stories of the West.
All right. So, that was Legends of the Wild West, Porter Rockwell, Samson of the West. So, shout out to them. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Like this video. Share this video and comment. Even if you just say hi. Or let's talk about Porter Rockwell a little bit. Anyway, Thank you so much. Don't forget, there is a couple designs that I have on my merch. The link is in the description. It's under Bonfire, and amongst other links that I have there. Anyway, thank you so much, and that's it.